welcome to the Urban Podcast, and thank you so much for joining this podcast. If you're new here, a big welcome. If you're part of this amazing community, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you. Today, we will be talking about climate change, resilience, what youth leadership is. And as you know, the drill, this is a podcast where we have these real conversations. We listen to ideas, innovations, solutions that shape our cities from the ground up. So I will pass the mic to Calvin to introduce himself. Just tell us who you are and where you grew up. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So thank you very much. My name is Calvin Moda, a resident of Mathare, born and raised. So Mathare is one of Nairobi's largest informal settlements where insecurity, unemployment are the main key issues that we address in the community. And those are the challenges that the community's members are facing. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Calvin, for telling us your name and just pointing out some of these challenges that we are also going to get into. And tell us, how is it like the fun beats? Like, how is the culture like in Mathare? How is it different from what is portrayed in mainstream and on different media platforms?
They say that if you come from the informal settlements, you're already 2-0 down. So you need to get and level up to the nil stage. Then that is when you start now to gain the momentum of getting the real access to life. So people living there actually, people who are deprived of many things, people who are underprivileged, people who don't get access to services that they equally need, people who live beyond resilience, people who just survive. I cannot call it resilience, I call it survival, because being born there is actually a survival for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And my next question would be, in 2024, Kenya experienced some of the worst floods that we've ever seen. And the impact was very major in informal settlements. And we had forced evictions going on at the time that the flooding was going on. What was your experience at that time as a young person living in Mathare when this was happening?
So when we talk about the 2024 floods, it triggers something inside me because it looks like it was like yesterday, very fresh. So whenever I talk about that, I remember the events that occurred on the night of the flooding. I can remember it was on the 24th of April, where Chelsea and Arsenal were playing at the odd hours. That was at 10 p.m. And being a Chelsea fan, I went to watch football in one of the local video shows within the community. So as a Chelsea fan, I was disappointed because we were scored like 4-0. Now going back to the house with that disappointment, sleeping, and being woken up by my younger brother. So I could not realize, because somebody being woken up at the deep sleep, you have only slept for like 1 hour and being woken up. So I was confused, and my brother was telling me that the water levels were really rising, and they were rising at a speed that was not normal. I've lived in Mathare since I was born up to now. So we knew that there were floods, but the floods that were coming, they did not come at that rate. So something triggered me, and being that my house was like 10 meters away from the river, now what came into my mind was, what about the very person who is 2 to 1 meters away from the river? So I woke up and people were in deep sleep by then. I would think I was the second person after my brother waking up, and we started knocking on the gates, telling people that they should wake up. The level at which these waters were rising were not normal. So at that point, the water levels were rising at a very higher speed. So at that point, being that my parents, by then they were at the rural home, so I had to run to my mom's house where the children were sleeping, because that was my first priority. So going there, I found that they too were sleeping. So I had to wake them up and tell them, now, let us try to salvage some of the properties that we have, because the levels at which these waters are rising, we don't know if the televisions, probably the radio, these electronic materials, they could survive these waters. So we started shifting things, clothes, taking them to higher grounds. So at that very moment, there was rain. So it was like, for me, it was like the worst day of my life. It reached a point that I told the young people now, my younger siblings and other young people within the place, that now it's a way much above us. And being that I'm not one of the best swimmers, I cannot let you risk your lives because of property. We can salvage property or we can regain property later. So I told them, let us go to their grants and see at what level with this water reach, because it was almost covering now to my neck. I know my younger brothers, some of them are best swimmers, but I told them, no, these waters are not still waters. They are running waters. And the speed they were coming with, it is high. So at that point, we started hearing houses being squeezed and being taken away by the waters. So it was that, it was at that moment that now I told them, we cannot save everything. Some people are still in deep sleep. So we could hear voices of people passing through the river. Help me, help me. You know, it is very difficult. At the middle of the night, you cannot go into a river where you don't know the exact speed at which it's coming to save someone. So we had just to let them go. Those are people who succumb. There are many people who died as a result of that. And we saw them and we heard their voices screaming from houses. No, not everybody wakes up immediately after an event. So that's when, after that, in the morning when the floods were rising, I was shivering, having salvaged nothing from me, because I told you I left my home to go and salvage things from my mom's house. And now remaining only with the clothes that I had. So it was very traumatic at that moment, shivering. And we were just watching now. We could do nothing. And we saw houses go. We saw even the block houses being plucked from the ground. That is when, after 24 hours, the government came out with a notice that people should move 30 meters away from the river. So instead of coming to respond to people, so there was an house that my father had just 15 meters away. It was not affected, but it was not in good state. So I had to repair the house so that the little things that we have saved could be put there, and we could start now gaining the momentum. But at that point, that is 15 meters. Already the government has already ordered 30 meters. So we had to think for another alternative, another option. We don't have money. We don't have where to cook. Everything has gone. And now we have children who need food. You see, it was really challenging. So when my parents came, they found already we had already built the structure. So we started from there now to plan on what we will do next. And now people started, the eviction started from the other side of the settlement. And now people started now removing structures, looking for alternative options. So there was another house from a friend of my parents, 30 meters. I think it was above 30 meters. And we requested them that now, because now we don't have somewhere to stay, please let us just renovate the structure and my parents to stay there. We look for a way to compensate you later. So he gave us the access, and I took my mom there and my family. So I personally did not have anywhere to stay. So I could juggle to sleep from one friend to another, and probably we could not even sleep because we were like young men. We were to guard maybe the remaining iron sheets, so that those were the only things, the only remnants of the properties that we had left at that moment. I got another place where now I stayed. Now let me now put my structure here. It was an abandoned house for my parents for a very long time. And when we were building that structure, they say that tragedy attracts tragedy. So when I was building the house, then I had a phone call. Somebody called me from my mom's number. And when I listened, then the person told me that your mother has been into an accident. You know, the first thing that comes into our mind when you're told about an accident, you think of a tragic accident, where lives either lost or maybe somebody in the intensive care unit. So I was shocked. I had my siblings there, but I did not tell them anything. I just told them, you continue, I'll come back, let me rush, because they told us that he was taken to a nearby facility. So I was running. I was confused because I don't know what I'll get at the end of the day.
Situation is.
I don't know the situation. So I'm just trying to hope that maybe everything would be good at that moment. Maybe it could be just a minor accident and not a major one. So when I went there, I found my mom crying, but I think it was not a very major, but he had fractured one of his legs, and until now he's a person with disability. So he got his disability as a result of the processes of the evictions and demolitions, because people are being moving from one place to another. So I had to go to the hospital. After getting that, it was okay. That's what the moment that now I could tell my other siblings, because I could not want to traumatize anyone. We had a house that we were staying. It was a friend of mine's house, his father's house, and we were staying there. But people had already evacuated there because it was within the 30 meters mark. And we were trying to negotiate that now this is now like 26 meters. Will you just let us have this house?
Just give up the whole, let us stay.
But what came into our surprise is when we were negotiating, some members of the community, especially the young people who are now looking at the metals within the building, they started shouting, no, this house cannot be left. This house has to be revoked because it is within the 30 meters zone. So those people came. Unfortunately, it was late, and they said, now this house is what we will start with tomorrow, because we are close.
Now your house.
That is not that's where now we are residing. Already people are evacuated. Now we came down, it was like in the evening 6. Then we spoke, we said, no, if these young people think they want to take this metal, it was a 4-story building house. If these young people think that this metal is what they want to take, we will prove to them that they will find nothing in. So we said, some of our friends, we came, we said, now let us go and eat. Now from 6, we went to the building, starting demolishing from up, removing the metals so that we could compensate the father of my friend, and also at least try to salvage him, even if it could not be as good as compensation as what he had used to build the house, but at least to give him hope, something for a startup. So we vandalized the house slowly by slowly, overnight, until it was 6, until in the morning. And on the previous day, a friend of mine from the Muungano na Vijiji had called me that he wanted me to go to an exchange in Kisumu on the next day of the night. And I was like, no, I don't want to go. I still have a lot of things to do. I cannot leave my family of this. But he told me, now, I want you to go. So I did not know why he would want me to go. Just say, if I should go, then okay. And he told me to give him my number, and I will send a very good amount of money at that moment. When they were demolishing those houses, my parent was in the house, and I told it was away 30 meters. But now, when they read that moment, they say, no, these houses should be cleared. You see, we have not even planned to remove anything. We knew that we already away with the 30 meters.
Because you had made sure that it was.
Now going to take again my parent, disabled, carrying him, taking him to another place, now to a friend's place, trying to salvage, to rescue things. At that moment you can't rescue anything because we have boys here that are scouting for these properties. Now we had only to save a very few things from them. In the morning now, it was when the house was to be demolished. Now we had to go and sell the mat to prepare. I'm supposed to travel in the evening. I don't have any clothes. The clothes I've been wearing for 3 days is what I have. I've not planned for everything. The demolitions are here. I can't leave things to go on themselves. So, and this house, we have to try as much as possible to salvage everything. So when they came, they swept everything. After sweeping everything, it was almost 4. I've not bought any clothes. So I went to a neighborhood where I bought some long trousers and some clothes and a bag. Came and packed my clothes. And I can remember the vehicle that was taking us there was to come within the community. And what I could remember then is the moment I stepped into that vehicle, the first stop that I woke up, it was like 6 in the evening. I was in Kisumu. I slept. I was very tired. Then I haven't slept for 3 days. So the moment I sat with my now, it was just a 2-day trip. But we went to a very good house, a very good Airbnb. Now at least I recovering. I started recovering. And after the 2 days, I came back to the same thing that I was getting away from. The very trauma, trying to salvage things, trying to put things in order, trying to make my life in order, knowing very well that I don't have a house and everything that I could only salvage was my bed and mattress. That hizo ndo kenye nilipata after nyumba kuenda, hizo ndo zilibaki. I found a small house there, and I was as I was sleeping, that is when I knew I did not know what was happening to me by then, because I could not sleep in those nights. It was still raining, and hearing the wavering sounds of the river, it reminded me of the very first event. So I could not sleep because the house was all in the 30-meter mark. The river was my adjacent neighbor, and the wavering sounds reminded me every time I was sleeping to wake up. Things are not good. So I could not sleep that day. I was totally traumatized. And I can remember on the house that I was staying, there was one day that I forgot to lock the door. But I locked the door, and I was very sure that I even tied the padlock. This door is locked. Now, when I went to my mom's house where we had moved in, my brother is telling me that, do you know your house is not locked? I told him, no, stop joking with me, my friend.
I locked it.
I'm very sure, and I confirmed. Then I went and I found actually did not lock the door. So I locked it. The second day, the same thing. So it was like a repeat of event. I'm doing something, knowing very well that it's done, but actually I'm doing the opposite. I'm just locking the padlock, leaving the hinges outside. So on the third day, now when I forgot, I came and found that the very mattress that I had,
it was stolen.
It was now gone, because the community, they can't leave everything for you because the door was not locked. So when I went to sleep in the night, we could stay there up till night, maybe at 12 or 1 a.m. So when I went, knowing very well that I'm now going to sleep, I don't have a mattress. All these things happened, and I think I started losing myself. And afterwards, I realized that I was suffering from a mental illness that was a post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Although I wasn't diagnosed in any hospital, but after diagnosing myself, I realized that at that moment I was suffering from PTSD.
I think those are very traumatic events for anyone, to be honest, and I don't know what I would have done if I was in that situation. And I don't know how you did it, because a lot of people wouldn't have been able to come out of it strong. And really sorry for what happened, and I'm glad that none of your family members lost their lives. But I know there were those losses and the injury that one of your parents suffered, and I hope that they are doing well now, at least compared to the first time the event happened.
They are surviving.
They're surviving.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm really sorry about to like hear that, and it's like I'm listening to it and imagining how many other people who didn't get an opportunity to even tell their stories because it was not what people are really paying attention to. We don't really get to hear these deep stories, and those are like really traumatic events that no one should absolutely go through. Yeah, for sure. And definitely in a crisis, leaders are born, and you yourself, you're a leader. And how did that come about? Was this event the motivator for you now, organizing and even setting up an organization? Was this what motivated you?
Yes, actually I can say that this was the starting point for an organization that I formed with my friends, especially those that we were close with and had lost a lot of things. And now we say that now the government have demolished our houses. Our livelihoods are taken away from us. Would we sit down and watch? We have to do something. We have to at least to strategize so that at least we survive, because it's all about survival. And we started an organization called the Safe Slums Integrators Mathare. And we started really to reclaim the public spaces, the riparian, by starting a project called the urban farming. So that is where the organization was born. After this traumatic experience, that's when now we came down as young people to become innovative and creative, saying that if these spaces have now been left there, what can we do with them to at least to produce us food and also to sustain some of our members and some of our lives. So, and then is when the Rest to Resilience project was born by SDI Kenya, Basic Needs, Basic Rights, and Tabasamu Cafe. And I was one of the champions who was trained. And being trained there, that was part of my recovery process. And that is when I realized that whenever we have such conversations, that is always, conversations are always the first entry point to any mental health service. So through the Rest to Resilience project, we started conversations within the community, ensuring that those people who had losses did not lose their minds as well. Starting this conversation to ensure that now those people who were actually would come out to those experiences now had an opportunity to speak about them freely. And the one thing that I can say, whenever I share my story, I don't share my story because maybe it is very painful. We have people who have been into painful experiences that I am, but I share this because it is one point that I get my mental release. It is when I share my story, that is when I get relieved from those experiences. I now identify myself as a person with disability. Yeah. And my disability comes from a person with a lived experience in mental illness. Yeah. So we have such many people like that within the communities. And these conversations aims at people with the lived experiences to tell their stories and use that stories as something that will motivate people and make people to realize that we have a life beyond those experiences. Yeah. And through Basic Need, Basic Rights, I underwent training, and I can say now that I am a counselor. I am a lay counselor. A lay counselor, that means a counselor within the community. Mm-hmm. We offer counseling services to people who have come out from traumatic experiences, mm-hmm. or people who have succumbed into mental illnesses. Mm-hmm. So we try to reduce the rate of death that occurred. After losing people on the flooding, we had lost a lot of people as a result of mental illness because they did not have people who would listen to them. Mm-hmm. They did not have places that they would speak freely about how they feel. Mm-hmm. And they lost their lives as a result of they were neglected. They were not attended to. And that was something that was very sad. And SDI, I think, with Muungano and Vijiji, saw that as a priority need. Mm-hmm. Because we came to realize that if I'm not mentally upright, then I'm even not well physically. Yeah. Physical health depends on mental health. Yeah. So we started this conversation, and I think people are getting to their feet. People are getting to realize that it's okay not to be okay. Mm-hmm. And when we speak about this conversation, they get relieved. They get to know that we have people who have been into worse traumatic experiences, mm-hmm. and we are still living. So there's no need of giving up. Life has got ups and downs, and with the good recovery plan that I'm using personally as a person with lived experience, I know my life has been shaped. Mm-hmm. And as a leader and as a young person, I know that there are many lives that we have transformed within the community.
Mm-hmm. Calvin, in moments of crisis, we've also noted that organizations will mostly focus on relief and infrastructure. How can organizations better support communities in such crises where there's a tragedy, double, triple tragedy, even like yours, where the floods have happened, evictions also happened, sanitation facilities have been swept away, people lose businesses, their means of livelihood. How can organizations better support, particularly when it comes to issues related to mental health? Because the way you have pointed it out, it is clearly such a big issue, and that you're one person, but you represent a number of people living in informal settlements who may not have the opportunity to share their stories, and it's probably on the same level, even deeper. So how can organizations better support communities and young people?
So thank you. Maybe I'll start with the organization, the NGOs. I think at this moment, empowerment goes beyond giving people resources and things. It comes in when, when people are mentally stable,
Yeah.
they are physically able,
Mm-hmm.
they are energetic, and especially the young people who drives the economy of this nation. If our mental status, if our mental health is not looked into, we will not have an economy in this country when you're mentally unstable.
Mm-hmm.
So me, I think the only thing that we should be doing in the community with the little resources maybe we have is to first try to set up conversations that, because as I told you earlier, that conversation is always the entry point to any mental health service.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to focus on giving people grants to do their project without empowering them mentally. Because if you don't empower them mentally, that's why some of these groups, they fall apart. Because those people are not mentally stable. You give them resources to work on projects, but they can't focus on those projects if they are not mentally fit. Economic empowerment or financial empowerment is also one thing that boosts the mental stability of these young people. So mental health is something that should be looked into, because if you don't look into that, we'll be losing a lot of lives within the informal settlements, and we'll be losing people, taking people back to the facility.
And do you think that collective action and youth organizing can help? Yeah.
So when we talk about resilience within the community, when communities are organized, they automatically become resilient. So organizing is one of the factors that makes communities to become more resilient. And when we speak about organizing, it's about having platforms where people can have spaces, public spaces or safe spaces where people can speak freely about their lives. So I think that's why the Muungano na Vijiji and SSIM are trying to come up with a strategy to set up a resilience center within the community where people can have access to spaces where they can speak. And on the resilience center, the main reason for the resilience hub within the community was to make the community resilient, to ensure that people get early warning signs before the events occur. Because actually, if we would have been warned earlier on that night, there could be some lives that could have been saved, and they could have been here today. Because whenever we have this crisis and disasters, we know that community members are always the first responders. At that night, we were the first respondents to the crisis because we had to save lives. It is not in our mandate. We are not trained for that. So the Resilience Center is where community will be trained on the proper measures to take whenever we have a crisis. So the Resilience Hub will be the center point to making the community a resilience.
Okay. I'm really looking forward to see how that goes, because I absolutely think that it will really help the community, especially just young people, get resources and the kind of help that they need. And just like you've said, information is very key. And you've mentioned that if you had known earlier, if the people had known earlier, then lives would have been saved. So I'm really looking forward to see how that goes, and that is one of the things that will really support communities. So I'm really looking forward to see how that goes. Muungano is turning 30 this year, 3 decades of community organizing, fighting for land, housing, services, being able to live in dignity. Some of the things that you've mentioned, and you're a youth within Muungano, like, what does this mean to you, just knowing that this struggle has been there from 3 decades now? What does this mean to you?
So first I would say Muungano 30, it means that I'm also turning 30. So it's like we are age mate.
Yeah.
So at that point, these are 30 years of struggle. These are 30 years of resilience, 30 years of organizing the community to speak for the community. And that is one thing that the Muungano na Vijiji, we as the Muungano na Vijiji have been fighting for, advocating for people's rights on the basis of land, housing, and infrastructure. And I think Muungano turning 30 means that the community has now built resilience.
What advice would you give to young people, a young person just like you, within Mathare, who may have experienced the same issues that you've mentioned, like particularly the intersection between climate change, being at the threat of being evicted, mental health, somebody who's going through it, what advice would you give them directly? Yeah.
So I will first state they should know that it is okay not to be okay. It is really okay not to be okay. And they should not fear speaking about these things. It doesn't make them weak. It makes them stronger. Speaking about the challenges they have doesn't make them less of humans. It only makes them strong to fight to the next life.
We have come to the end of the podcast, but before we sign off, is there anything else that you'd like to mention that I've probably not asked but you feel is important and will add to the conversation? Then you can go ahead and say it.
Yes, I think that the communities should come together at these moments, especially at moments where they're targeted, to come and speak freely. It doesn't make people less of humans when they keep silent. Silence doesn't help. And something that the Muungano na Vijiji, one of their motto is being Muungano nguvu yetu. So we believe in the power of unity. Yeah.
Wow, what a nice way to wrap it up. And there's one thing that I'll definitely pick from you is young people must fight for their spaces. You must fight for what you believe in. And uoga ni umaskini, muungano nguvu yetu, unity is very key. And one last thing I pick is it is okay to not be okay. And I think that is something that we resonate with as well, and something that I'll definitely remember. And I know this was not a very easy conversation, and you're brave for actually sharing your story, and the motivation is actually inspiring. You've said it's important for you to be able to speak out so that encourages or helps someone else out there who may not know how to handle the situation. So I think that's really what leaders do, and what leaders are made of. So thank you so much, Calvin, for coming to the podcast. It has been a very eye-opening conversation, and I'm sure it was also a hard conversation for you, even just listening to these events, traumatic event after traumatic event. I was, wow, like that is the definition of resilience, because what you see online, it's almost as if it's a distance meaning. Like when policymakers, media say resilience, it's like this distant thing. But then when you have like you talk about it like so deeply, then you are able to like really begin to understand what it is. And it clearly is not easy to be able to like bounce back and keep moving forward from such a situation. But it's good to know that you have this organization that is also giving back to the community. And it's always inspiring just looking at what young people are doing, like what leaders are you are doing. And I'm hoping that we have young people watching the podcast who can have things to pick from your experience and feel encouraged. So thank you so much for coming. It has been a pleasure having you, and I hope we'll have more of these discussions even in the near future. I hope you'll be able to come.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
Yeah.
I appreciate.
And we also appreciate you coming to share your story and just being able to learn a lot of things from you. And looking forward to the next time that we have these conversations. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. If you stayed up to the end, you need to give yourself a thumbs up, drums roll, and everything. And we'll keep having these conversations. We'll keep having these discussions. And these are discussions you don't like really get to hear from mainstream, because things like evictions, for instance, may be presented as development, but like it's important to have people with lived experience come to the podcast and like share their stories and what they think the solutions are. And hopefully we have policymakers, people in government, people in authority, leaders who are listening. Give young people a chance, and because if you don't, they will take it anyway. So be warned, and have a good day from wherever you're watching from.